Welcome to Old Virginia Homes. The house we're visiting today isn't for the faint of heart. And if you're looking for fine interior finishes and carefully restored rooms which would have offered a suitable backdrop for Virginia's elite, you won't find that here. What you will find is an interesting interpretation of the 19th century plantation house as it would have looked when it was being used as a Civil War field hospital, treating wounded Confederate soldiers after the Battle of First Manassas. You won't find rooms with elegant formality and that sense of decorum and propriety that makes guests feel peaceful and safe. What you will find is the stone-cold reality of what the house would have been like during the chaos and pandemonium in the summer of 1861, the agonizing sights and sounds of a makeshift wartime hospital. Join me as we visit the Ben Lomond House, an old Virginia home in Manassas. Let's go. When you visit the Ben Lomond Historic Site as a guest today, you enter through a side room, which is staged as a Civil War operating room. If you're not prepared, like I wasn't, it's a little shocking. Red paint splatter on the walls, red-stained bandages, medical implements lined up at the ready, and the piped-in sounds of doctors and their woeful, tormented patients. It's just jolting. Fortunately, you've been forewarned. But let's back up a bit to 1832. First of all, the Ben Lomond House was not named after a Benjamin Lomond, as I assumed it was. Ben Lomond is actually a mountain in the Scottish Highlands. The name Ben Lomond generally means Beacon Mountain, and by naming this house Ben Lomond, it was noting it as a place of prominence. So the house wasn't named after a Benjamin Lomond, but it was built by a Benjamin. Benjamin Tasker Chin, a descendant of the powerful Carter family of Virginia. Chin's mother was Sarah Fairfax Carter, and his father was Dr. John Yates Chin. After Sarah died, her 22-year-old son, Benjamin Tasker Chin, inherited 730 acres of Bull Run property and moved there with his 7 enslaved workers. It was there that they built the house, a Federal-style structure constructed of red sandstone from a local quarry. The house was originally covered with a yellow-gray stucco and scored to resemble large stones, a popular technique of the time. Although I think there's such beauty in the bare, unfinished sandstone the house wears today. The outbuildings here are all constructed from the same type of stone as the house and include a dairy, a smokehouse, and slave quarters. The slave quarters were moved to the current location in order to preserve them. This structure is unusually well constructed for slave quarters, which are usually much cruder. This one has 2 rooms, a well-built fireplace, and upstairs quarters. So there is some thought that this building may have originally served as living quarters for Benjamin Chin while the main house was being built, and that this building became slave quarters later. Although tobacco was the predominant crop of the time, Chin chose to rear thousands of merino sheep, a breed which produces a very soft wool. In 1855, the Chin family began to lease the house and property to the Pringle family, Andrew Pringle Sr. and his sons Andrew Jr. and Thomas were Scottish immigrants. Never could they have imagined how quickly their peaceful farm life would unravel. On July 21, 1861, the Civil War's first major battle took place 1 mile north of what was now known as the Pringle House. The First Battle of Bull Run, referred to as the Battle of First Manassas by Confederate forces, ended in a Confederate victory, but also illustrated how poorly trained troops from both sides were. The aftermath was gruesome. Northern troops suffered 460 killed and 1,124 wounded. Confederates lost 387 lives, with 1,582 wounded. With hospitals overwhelmed, homes like this one were seized and transformed. Confederate surgeons informed the Pringle family that their house and yard would be converted to a field hospital, and the family was given the option of leaving or staying. They chose to stay. Would you? If you have opinions on this, let me know in the comments. Every inch of this home was pressed into urgent service. The parlor, once a place for quiet conversation and relaxation, became filled with broken bodies. Surgeons worked tirelessly with crude instruments in desperate attempts to save lives. Hallways became triage lines. The bedrooms upstairs became wards. 21-year-old Edward Craighill served as a hospital steward at the Pringle House Hospital. He recalls the night he arrived to address the wretched aftermath of the battle, the pathetic scene made even worse by the cold, rainy weather conditions. I was attracted by a fire under one of the trees in the Pringle yard, around which there were a number of men with their feet to the fire. My teeth were chattering with the cold, and it would be hard to imagine a more miserable human being. Seeing the fire and the men, I concluded that here was my opportunity to get warm and at the same time a nice nap. And finding a place between two sleeping soundly, I crawled in, and in less time than it takes to tell it, was sound asleep. The next morning, when I awoke, the sun was high in the sky, but I noticed that neither of the men I was between had stirred, and upon examination, found that they were stone dead. Neither moved when I took my place between them, and I have never known whether they were dead then or had died in the night from their wounds, which I found next day to be frightful. They were carried out and buried in the Pringle garden the next day. The Pringles lodged in one bedroom of the home for 35 days. But even after the hospital left the Pringle house, war continued to take its toll. Union troops occupied the property in 1862, ransacking the home. Following the war, the Pringles were entitled to reparations for damage done to their property by federal troops because they were British citizens. They claimed $1,261.20 worth of damages, but because they could not provide vouchers for much of what they claimed, and because they couldn't prove that they remained strictly neutral during the conflict, they received less than half the compensation they claimed. Although the house was finally fully returned to civilian life, memories lingered. Soldiers' graffiti still covered the walls. Blood-stained floors remained. Recent modern forensic testing verified that many mysterious dark spots found throughout the home are indeed what everyone thought. The house and its occupants saw better times in the early 20th century when Congressman John F. Rixey and his wife purchased the home in 1901. and even hosted President Theodore Roosevelt there. Today, the Pringle House is part of the Ben Lomond Historic Site operated by Prince William County, and although the house tour itself is grim, it's interesting. Of course, its gruesome hospital history makes great fodder for paranormal enthusiasts. But the grounds also host scholarly lectures and community events. And a nearby school offers the cheerful background noise of children playing. Thank you for visiting the Ben Lomond Historic Site and Pringle House Hospital with me today, an old Virginia home.